Putin wants to solve it with the help of mobilization, but will force recruitment help? Over the past 6 months, the Russian army has shown itself to be unprepared, undisciplined, unmotivated, and equipped with outdated technology. Christo Grozev, investigator from Bellingcat, is joining us now. So, Christo, thank you so much for joining us. The main question today is about draft announced by Vladimir Putin. How big is this game changer, and is it a game changer at all?
What is certain is that it is not a game changer in the near couple of months. In the short term, these people will not be able to influence the counteroffensive that we see from Ukraine. So let's talk about how much of a game changer it can be in a few months, in 4 to 5 months. I think the number of people that can be potentially recruited, even after all of the attrition of deserters, people who actually are taking flights to leave the country right now, the quality of the people that will end up at the front line does not allow them to be a game changer. Why is that? At this point, Russia has had already several months of very expensive and heavy hidden recruitment, hidden mobilization through outsourcing this effort to private companies. Prigozhin comes to mind with very, very high salary offers. And anybody who actually had the desire to take part in this war and the specialization to be of importance already signed up for one of the 4 different private companies that offer increasingly high salaries. So the people that will join from now on are people that are not qualified. They're just bodies that will be used as perishable commodity, and these people cannot really make a difference on the front line.
As long as I understand, the other problem is that there is a huge problem with the Russian war vehicles, with the tanks and with the artillery. Is there a way for the Russian authorities to find the solution here?
Well, I mean, they can just pace themselves. That's about the only thing that they can do, because within the next 3 to 4 months, the current rate of attrition of the equipment will mean that the only weapons that these new recruits, these new mobilized hundreds of thousands people will have are Kalashnikovs. That's about the only thing that Russia has in sufficient quantities. But to produce new tanks, to produce new artillery units, almost 8 to 9 months are needed. So I don't see really, I see a big gap between the number of people that Russia can round up and the equipment, the military equipment that is not available.
Having said that, what is your point of view of the future of this war? If everything is so bad for the Russian government, this step looks like a desperate step.
Well, the fact that everything looks bad for the Russian government does not necessarily equate to everything looking good for the Ukrainians. At this point, I don't see any winning strategy for the Kremlin. There's the only winnable part of this war is delaying and turning it into a war of attrition without a definite outcome. And here, the Kremlin is putting its bets on the fact that it can last longer by having a slow war of attrition than Ukraine, because Ukraine largely depends on foreign aid, both military and humanitarian at this point. And Putin clearly is counting on the West giving up on Ukraine after losing interest. So I think the real outcome of the war depends on how much Ukraine can mobilize the West and the rest of the world in continuing the support. And this will be driven largely also by successes in the short term, because the more successful Ukraine is in the counteroffensive, the more enthusiastic the West becomes in giving Ukraine more weapons.
One last question about, speaking of hidden mobilization, we saw last weeks how Russia and Yevgeny Prigozhin, a businessman close to Vladimir Putin, how he was recruiting Russian prisoners in Russian camps to take part in a Russian invasion into Ukraine. How big this process is and how effective these people are on the battleground?
Well, first, one thing I would like to look at is whether this search of, let's call it scraping the bottom, people looking for the last remaining 4,000, 5,000 people that can be found in jails, in prisons, it indicated that the decision to mobilize was not made yet in the last couple of months. So it must be a last-minute decision, because otherwise that effort was meaningless. And why is it meaningless? Because these people are not efficient fighters. These people are antisocial, most of them. They end up in jail because they can't fit in society. And now suddenly it is expected of them to fit in the most structured of societies, an army. Many of them will defect immediately. Many of them have a grudge against the Russian government and will possibly join or offer to join the Ukrainian armed forces against Russia. It's a totally wild card of a group of people, which just showed the desperation, at least in the last month, of running out of people.
All right, thank you so much, Christo Grozev, here on TV Ray.